Welcome back to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. Hey, have you given up on your creativity? If so, your name is probably Kirk Hammett. Well, Traci Guns isn't too happy about that. Find out all about it next.
You caught me unawares, Ryan.
That's okay. Well, that's all right, man. I just thought I would capture our witty banter about Judas Priest.
Man, it's funny. Like, honestly, we just have witty banter the whole time, and then we hit record at some point in the process, and then we stop recording at some point. And we don't even really know when that point is. We just start talking, and then it's just at some random point.
Right. The banter is always witty.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then it just stops at some point. There's like a
man, I just don't know what to say now.
Emptying of buckets of the wittiness. It just ends up happening. Like, oh, that's all we got right there. That's the whole thing. Sorry, guys. Time to go home. You know?
Yeah. So Judas Priest has a new video out, which is great.
I saw a couple of them, actually. There's two of them. It's killer stuff, man. It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it reminds me a little bit of, it's kind of in the vein of Firepower. It's got that kind of, it's like modern and powerful.
Well, it's Judas Priest.
But it's got a little bit. Well, no, if you listen to like Redeemer of Souls, it's a little. It sounded tired. Like that album sounded tired to me. You know, I think Angel Retribution sounded kind of tired a little bit. Didn't really sound like it. But like Firepower was like, whoa, like that sounds like a band with something to prove.
Was Firepower the first album with Richie Faulkner on it?
I think he and Glenn were the guys who wrote all the stuff on that. And
nice.
But it's just like so powerful, killer.
And probably Andy Sneap producing.
Yeah, of course. He's actually their touring guitar player too, so it makes sense. But I think it's Rob's sounding great on vocals. I mean, it sounds just like he always has.
That's great.
It's awesome. And then the new stuff sounds great too. It's a little bit more, like a little bit in the prog direction, I would say. It's got a little progginess to it, but not like a lot of the more latter-day Iron Maiden albums have gotten a little too proggy, like where they go
latter-day Iron Maiden albums?
Iron Maiden, yeah. It's not quite that far into the prog land. Like Iron Maiden goes way into the prog land. Like this is our 15-minute song with like 4 riffs.
Whatever the last Iron Maiden single, so what was their last album, Ninjutsu or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
which I think was Bruce Lee's martial arts style, was it not?
Oh man, what was his martial arts style?
Jeet Kune Do.
Jeet Kune Do. Okay, thank you. I much prefer to play Jeet Kune Do than Rochambeau trying to make decisions.
Yeah, it was very. I think what's funny about new Iron Maiden stuff is it reminds me of like standing in the fog. Like every once in a while it clears and you can see something really cool. Like, oh, that's cool. And then the fog comes in and it kind of, I can't really tell anymore.
Didn't Ninjutsu, it kind of sounded new country.
No, it didn't sound new country. It just sounded like unfocused. Does that make sense? It's like a bunch of ideas and if you sift through all the ideas, some of them are good, some of them are not great, and it doesn't really go anywhere. There's not really massive hooks anymore. Like if you listen to like Aces High or, Stranger in a Strange Land or, some of those tunes.
There's a theme. There's a hook,
even Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, as long as that is, it's got sections and really cool parts. This feels like let's just put a bunch of ideas together and it doesn't really gel. I don't know. They really need a producer who can come in and say, nope, this idea is good, this idea is bad.
So although you would expect a song like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner to be lost at sea.
Yes.
You're saying that their new material is metaphorically lost at sea.
It's not all bad. I'm not trashing it. There's good stuff mixed in there. You know what I mean? Both guitar players or all 3 guitar players can still play, and it's fine.
Totally.
I just would rather than playing awesome solos in the midst of a really awesome song, as opposed to like a meh song with a couple good parts, a couple boring parts, and some cool solos and then Bruce kind of just, I don't know if Bruce has lost the ability to come up with really powerful melodies anymore or not, but it feels like he's not really singing the melodies like he used to. Even like Brave New World had great melodies, you know what I mean? And I don't know, to me that's kind of missing now. Judas Priest, though, to kind of counterbalance that, I feel like they definitely have more powerful melodies going on. I mean, Rob's voice is powerful, as is Bruce's, but I feel like they just the songwriting is just better. And I don't know if that's Richie Faulkner's contributions or whatnot. I mean, it's hard. Like, I mean, I can imagine if you're Adrian Smith and Dave Murray and Yannick Gers, and Steve Harris, you've been writing songs for 45 years and you've kind of, 20 albums in or whatever. It's like, you've kind of treaded that territory already. It must be hard and you've also been massively successful for decades and decades, and
the territory's been trod upon by dwarves.
Exactly. And orcs and other sorts. But it just feels like they're just not powerful. They're not like in it anymore. You know what I mean?
I can see, Iron Maiden is big business.
Exactly. They're just touring the hits, basically. And
Judas Priest feels more like a band to me.
I feel like Richie Faulkner feels like he needs to put his stamp on Judas Priest. And I think that you can hear it, and you can hear it in the music. He really sounds like someone who has something to prove. Yeah. As opposed to someone who's, we proved it back in the 80s. We're fine. You know what I mean? You just feel that. You know what I mean?
The hunger.
Yeah. You know what I have to say? I'll give not in the same sort of genre, but Def Leppard's last record was actually really strong.
Yeah.
There was actually a lot of good stuff on that album, and I think had that come out in like '92, it would have been very successful. You know, it had a lot of. I mean, it was strong. You know, without Mutt Lange. People always say, "Oh, Mutt Lange," and that's the whole reason that Def Leppard was so successful. And he was definitely a big reason why.
Dude, On Through the Night is one of my favorite Def Leppard albums.
But it wasn't like their
so many
commercial breakthrough. Like when they did High and Dry, Pyromania, Hysteria.
It was Pyromania is the one.
Well, High and
really...
Dry kind of got the door cracked open. It reminded me a little bit of like Slide It In from the Whitesnake. Like, you know, and they kind of
straight to the top.
Yeah, but then, you know, then the next album, they kind of opened the door, then the next album blew the door open, right?
Right.
Kind of
so when they slide it in straight to the top, they ain't never going to stop.
No,
yeah,
why would you?
David Coverdale taught us.
Exactly. He taught us many things, but one of the things he taught us was that.
You know what? So I appreciate that. You know, so some of the legacy guys are still hungry.
Yeah, that's what I would say about like the New Priest stuff. It sounds like hungry. It sounds like it's still a hungry band to me.
You know, I would also say that about the most recent LA Gun stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially with Phil Lewis and Traci Guns back together.
Yeah, dude, that single they released 4 or 5 years ago, Speed, that is a badass song.
I wish that they had kept their shit together over the, you know, early 2000s, 90s-ish period, because they could probably, you know, have so many more great records together. I mean,
wasn't there an album with Ralph Saenz, otherwise known as Michael Starr from Steel Panther? That was in early 2000s or mid 2000s.
They put an album. I thought he just did some shows with them. I don't think he did. Did he do an album with them?
I think he did do an album.
That's awesome. He's an amazing singer.
Okay, well, I will research that.
By the way, a little known fact about Phil Lewis, the singer of LA Guns, he's also the lead singer for Girl,
which also featured a certain Def Leppard guitar
Phil
player.
Collins band.
That's right.
Exactly. And those guys actually were, now I found out they're actually pretty damn successful. They actually toured Europe and Japan and stuff. And
places where people still to this day like good music.
Well, I didn't know that I thought they were just kind of more of just a local, you know, UK band. I didn't realize they were international. The Girl, I mean, obviously those two guys both found their way to massive bands. Although Def Leppard is like on a different level than LA Guns, but you know, that's what happens when you have the hits. When you have like those massive hits over a over a decade worth of albums put out, you know, you're going to have, that's why they could still tour stadiums. By the way, Def Leppard is touring with Journey this year. Did you know that?
Oh, nice. Well, I mean, didn't they do a run, like last year? It was like Poison, Journey, Def Leppard?
No, it was Poison, Motley Crue, Def Leppard last year.
And again, I hear Poison just blew everybody off the stage.
But this year, I mean, they did, I know that Journey and Def Leppard did that, stadium thing like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, like before the pandemic hit. But they're doing stadiums again, so they're playing like Pac Bell Park and all places like that, these giant 50,000 seaters and stuff. And how cool! I guess Steve Miller's opening, which is a really strange mix to me. I know that doesn't make sense to me why they
kind of odd.
I know on some of the shows it's Heart, which I thought would be great. Heart, Def Leppard, and Journey. That's a great combo. But yeah, Steve Miller. I mean, I like Steve Miller. I just doesn't seem
Steve
like
Miller too.
I don't know why he fits on that bill.
Well, and I mean, I guess like Heart has. I mean, they have an '80s catalog, but man, I think
they got the hits though. Heart's got. Well, actually, Steve Miller's got a lot of hits too. I mean,
right. Yeah. Well, totally. I mean, I could see like Heart. Like I could see Steve Miller supporting Heart.
Yeah.
Where Heart's headlining. Yeah. Like that makes sense to me. And then get like a local act worthy of national tour support.
There was one other band that's going to be on some of those shows too. I'm trying to think what there's one. I can't remember what the other band was. It's like a relatively big band. You know, the same, that kind of similar in size to those other bands. I think what that really comes down to is that Journey and Def Leppard can bring butts to the seats. You can go get 50,000 people to come see those two bands play, but they don't want to play 2 hours each. So we want to have an hour 20 set as opposed to a 2 hour set. So we need openers. So hey, who wants to be on this show?
And man,
who can also contribute, you know what I mean?
And I'll tell you what, like an hour 20 set, that goes fast.
It does. It's like what, 15, 12 songs? I mean, that's,
that's like nothing.
Which is like basically the hits plus like two like deeper cuts. That's basically what they can do. You know what I mean? And for the same for the openers, if you're Steve Miller and you're playing a 45-minute to an hour set,
right?
What are you going to play? Like 6 songs? I mean, that's, he's got massive hits. So they can be hit.
Yep.
Same thing for Heart. We hit. You know what I mean? You know what bums me out though? I got to tell you. Then like I know you're winding out to talk about.
No, that's okay. I've already inserted Traci Guns into the conversation. So let's just acknowledge Traci Guns is my contribution, my suggestion of a legacy artist who is still hungry and still cares about being good at music.
LA Guns is a unique situation where they never really broke through and got huge. They had they had 1 or 2 like big singles that people knew like for a little while, like 1990.
Like the Ballad of Jane.
Ballad of Jane was like their big hit. You know what I mean?
Electric Gypsy was awesome.
I'm sure that's still when they're closing their set, they're doing it. Like Ballad of Jane, and they're probably closing with Electric Gypsy, or something like that. You know, there's great stuff on a lot. I mean, I think
they're always in the shadow of Guns N' Roses. Roses.
Yeah, but I think they're better than Guns N' Roses. You know what I mean? I'll be honest.
Totally. I wholeheartedly. Guns N' Roses has exactly one good album, and that's Appetite
and like
for
some
Destruction.
spotty stuff after that. It's pretty
the rest of it's trash.
Yeah, I don't know. It's trash. There's some good stuff on Use Your Illusion. There's some good stuff on there.
Okay, you have to sift through so much trash on Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
I know. It reminds me of like Metallica's Load and Reload. It's like there's okay stuff on there.
It reminds me of Metallica's career since 1991.
But you know what I mean? Like there's a couple good, to be fair, there's good stuff on both those albums. It's just they're not strong albums. They just have some good stuff here.
I mean, You Could Be Mine was, that was like for the Terminator soundtrack.
That was a kick-ass tune, man. That was great.
And of course that was the single that came out before so Use Your Illusion. Okay, so I want to take all of our listeners again back to what it was like to be, 11, 12-year-old me. And what it was like, with all of these albums that came out. Like the single Totally Rock.
Yeah.
Enter Sandman's pretty rad. I can't wait to hear nothing else. What?
Well, okay, it's not like that's the only thing that was on the Black Album. Nothing else matters than Unforgiven.
And the rest was Unforgiven. What the fuck is this?
Haven't they done like 4 sequels to Unforgiven?
No, yes, but no one's ever getting forget. So that's how it was with Guns N' Roses, right? There was, Appetite for Destruction was awesome. There was the controversial artwork,
Well, what was that? What was that EP they put out too? Was it Lies or something like that?
Well, there was Lies. There was also the Spaghetti Incident.
Oh, is that right?
Covers and stuff.
I remember that. Yeah.
So so once again, okay, so we had the disappointment of Use Your Illusion 1. Can anybody name a song off of that album besides November Rain?
Civil War.
Okay, so that's a cover, right? So we get
isn't it also like the Mama Put My Guns in the Ground?
Oh, right. Yeah, so we get the Bob Dylan cover, right? Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Knocking on Heaven's Door, yeah.
So, dude, this is not what I want out of Guns N' Roses. I don't want
when they're doing
garbage
when they're
ballad.
doing Mountains of Blow and Heroin, it's like really hard for them to focus on writing songs.
I don't know. You can make some great music doing Mountains of Blow. I mean, that was the,
And Heroin, though, they're at the same time.
Okay, the heroin doesn't help.
That's what I'm saying. And they're having sex nonstop and touring. It's like
heroin doesn't help with that either.
No, of course not. But I mean, I'm just saying those guys are banging groupies and doing Mountains of Cocaine and doing, it's like
I think the problem with both of those bands is that somebody told James Hetfield and somebody told Axl Rose that they were like real deep, meaningful artists. That's the fucking problem.
Yeah, and they took themselves too seriously.
Bingo.
Yep,
both of those guys take themselves way too seriously.
But going back to Guns and to Traci Guns though, and I think why LA Guns has always been so cool is that they're a band that's always never quite gotten there. They've never quite gotten to that spot where they felt like they should be. And it's like one of those bands that they hit big right almost when it was too late. Like their biggest hit was like 90, 91.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they didn't have like 5 years to build on that and have radio support and singles after that. So it reminds me of all those bands that hit like the 91, 92, like Extreme was in that situation. A bunch of bands are in that situation.
Agreed.
Where they kind of they didn't have time to build it out. Had they had that, they'd be much bigger. They'd be, the one band that actually I keep avoiding the,
that's okay.
I keep avoiding the Traci Guns.
That's okay. I'm chomping at the bit. I'm giving props to Traci Guns today, folks.
I feel like that's a band that is underrated for sure.
Agreed.
I think what I was going to say though about Heart, I was actually saying that bums me out about Heart. I was going there earlier, is that I actually really love their '80s stuff a lot. I think it's great. But if you listen to Nancy and Ann talk, they really hate that Ron Nevison's like era. They think
it's trendy to hate on that stuff.
But it's great tunes, man. There's a reason.
They're from Seattle, so they probably feel obligated to hate on that stuff. But These Dreams is fucking awesome.
They're both with Bad Animals and Heart. Those are great records. Even the album they did with All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You is a great record.
Great.
I can't know that out. It's the songs are awesome.
Yep.
And the stuff they've done since, the songwriting hasn't been as good.
Yep.
So and maybe they're a little butthurt that they had like outside songwriters brought in to help them with it. Maybe they were a little butthurt that they felt like they had to change their image a little bit to fit in. But they probably bought several homes based on them doing that because they had so much success.
You know what? At the time, they didn't care.
No, at the time, they were happy to be on the top of the charts. You know what I mean?
Don't tell me that they didn't like the production and the makeup. And, so for anyone listening out there, it's not, everybody out there had fun doing all that stuff. Yeah. It was fun. So don't look back and say,
when it became not cool to be like a glam kind of band, it was like, well, that wasn't really us, man. Our producer wanted that.
And then it was easy to pick on. Yeah, but, everybody had fun doing it. All the glam rockers in the UK in the 70s had fun doing it.
Heart became a major band again. Like they were getting ready to be dropped by the label, and then they had those couple records come out that had those huge hits, and then all of a sudden they're a major band again. You know what I mean? They're headlining again. And
there's nothing wrong with being big and loud and colorful, and you know,
I liked it better because when I listened to Old Heart, I remember thinking, well, this is cool, but this isn't really for me. This is like 70s stuff.
I mean,
you know
look, I think Little Queen is one of the coolest songs I've ever heard.
I don't dislike it, but like now I look back and I just think it all was Heart. But like I remember listening to Heart when I was like 12. I'm thinking, well, this isn't for me. This isn't my music. You know,
I think what for a
like
band
the older Heart, like the stuff like like Barracuda and Magic Man and stuff.
Barracuda, like those songs are like heavy in a way. And
I like them very much,
too,
but they have like a very 70s vibe. I remember thinking this sounds like Jethro Tull or Zeppelin or something.
I don't know if I'd say Jethro Tull, but
it didn't feel like it had anything to do with like Van Halen or Dokken or something like that.
No, agreed. I mean? Yeah.
So to me, it didn't feel like my music. You know what I mean? It didn't sound like Winger or Whitesnake or Dokken or Yngwie or this. It didn't have that modernness to it.
I definitely like. I like how Heart's a band that they've got such a big catalog. Like there's so many like tonal and mood options.
They really could do a tour like Iron Maiden does. Like they have this tour is gonna be like the 70s Heart tour. Then this is like the early 80s Heart tour. This is like the late 80s, early 90s tour. Focusing on different aspects of their careers. They're so different from each other.
You got to give it to, Ann Wilson, the voice. I mean, she's so
still
powerful.
Brings it, and she's still great. You know what I mean? And she's got to be pushing 70 now. Got to be. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Absolutely.
So I always was bummed out that they didn't like, because whenever they played These Dreams or What About Love, I was like, oh, that's a great song. But then like, I want to play this song because the producer wants to do a song. It's like, bums me out, man.
And you know what? You probably learned a lot about your craft from that producer. That's why they're a producer. That's what producers do.
Ron Nevison, in hindsight's had a real bad reputation because he also did the Ultimate Sin album, but Ozzy too. And then basically they would said, whoever the record label is like, well, Heart just had all the success with this producer. Let's bring him in and let's make Ozzy do like some very like pop oriented material, and we'll try and make it more mainstream. And,
in my opinion, the weakest song on Ultimate Sin is Thank God for the Bomb. I mean,
that's still a rocker,
chorus,
though.
It starts off the chorus just falls flat for me. But
that's actually Bob Daisley vocals, or not vocals, but lyrics too, which is they're kind of dumb. That's probably the dumbest lyrics that Bob Daisley's ever written.
Yeah, but kind of a low point. But Shot in the Dark is great. Killer of Giants is
Shot in the Dark
almighty.
is clearly their attempt to like have a hit single. That song's like got single written all over it.
Love it, and the video too. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great tune.
There's nothing weak about that song. Yeah, it's great.
Although who was it? Phil Soussan's the guy who wrote it. Never got any songwriting credit for it.
Poor Phil Soussan.
He's a douche anyway.
Yeah, he is. I can't really endorse.
But he is playing with Last in Line now, and the Last in Line's legit.
Is he really?
Yeah, because he's replaced Jimmy Bain when Jimmy Bain passed.
Damn it, Jimmy Bain. What the hell? What business does he have dying?
It's like, dude, you're the bass player. No one needs to hear your political thoughts. You know what I mean? It's
right. Well, in terms of Phil Soussan,
or frankly, any thoughts
not
at all.
Jimmy Bain. But
I don't even want to know what your thoughts are about like ice cream flavors. I don't want to know anything about your thoughts.
Ice cream's all a conspiracy.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah, sure it is. All right, so what happened? Yes. Tell me what happened between...
ice cream is made out of babies.
Traci... molested babies.
Right, yes. That's all
Traci Guns and Kirk Hammett apparently have a beef. What's going on?
Well, so, okay, for some reason, Kirk Hammett, I don't know if this started when the most recent Metallica album, had its first single, whatever it was called.
Well, the album's not called Lux Eterna. That's the single.
Yeah, it's the single. It's called like 72 Seasons.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, so Kirk's solo on Lux Eterna garnered a lot of criticism.
Yeah. Wait, I thought the solo was fine. It didn't strike me as overall. It sounds like a Kirk Hammett solo, typical,
but man, it's just, typical of Kirk Hammett since the Black Album.
Yeah, just kind of phoning it in. You know what I mean? That's
totally phoning it in. Yeah. It sounds. I agree. It sounds lazy.
We need to have something here, so just play something. Okay, here's something. Okay, that will do. That's what it sounds like. It's like. And
it doesn't. And
I'm gonna go surf in Maui now. That kind of.
And I'm not saying it has to be like crazy, like Angular prog. I'm not saying it can't be melodic. I'm not saying it can't be simple or minimalist. But it's just for those of you who are guitar players out there and learn just some basic rock and blues cliches. Imagine if you were in one of the biggest bands in the world and you just repeated one of those on the song.
Dude, we've talked about this on this podcast many times. It's the Jimmy Page effect. Like once you have a certain amount of like fame and accolades and money, you kind of just like stop caring to, some people do, some people don't.
Yeah.
Kirk's definitely entered that sort of phase where I'd rather like watch horror movies and go surfing and then, I'll come play some solos. You can tell it's like about that order and importance to him.
Yeah. So Kirk Hammett is probably feeling a little attacked right now.
Yeah. Okay. I can see it.
So so I keep getting.
At least that's what his people tell him. Right. As they're handing him his artisanal spring water.
Yes. So Guitar World and Ultimate Guitar. I mean, these things pop up on my feed, right? So recently, so I'm going to read from this article here. Recently, Metallica guitarist Kirk Hammett claimed guitar solos weren't too important in the grand scheme of things, claiming non-musicians pay little attention to the machinations of a guitarist during his solo section. So, the way they wrote this. So here's his actual quote. So Kirk Hammett to Ultimate Guitar, making sure everyone gets credit here. Quote, Kirk says, I hate to say it for all your readers out there, but non-musicians who are the majority of the fucking listening world, they are not going to remember guitar solos. They're gonna hell of a remember a great melody, and they're really gonna remember a great song, especially a song that's gonna bring them to a different place from where they were 5 minutes previously. End quote.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things you can say about that. What did Traci say about that?
So, in this article, there's, it goes on to say, the statements generated controversy and much discussion. And I saw this morning, and now a response has come from GNR's first guitar player, Traci Guns, who took to social media to give his opinion on the matter. Traci Guns, and I quote, "That's a really weird thing to say at Kirk Hammett. Solos are string poems. If the solos aren't memorable, then they are crap."
That's
End
true.
quote. So I just want to give a shout out to Traci Guns. Thank you, Traci Guns, for pushing back on Kirk Hammett's defense of mediocrity.
Yeah. Also, it doesn't even make sense considering that all the greatest Metallica albums had very memorable solos. You listen to Fade to Black, you listen to Master of Puppets.
I teach one all the time.
I mean, there's great solos.
That first
well constructed. You know what I mean?
Well constructed, right? There's a lot of
part
meat
of the
on the
song
bone.
too. Like if you listen to Master of Puppets, the solo is a major part of the song. That's
Absolutely,
that's not a secondary part. It's like
it's not,
and that's not even true at all. If you listen to Comfortably Numb from Pink Floyd, Hotel California, that Hotel California's got a incredible solo.
You can hear
Stairway to Heaven,
descending triads.
And then
Stairway to Heaven. Yeah,
want to go in our land like Eruption. That changed.
That's
the
all
world.
Eruption is.
It changed the world. You know what I mean? That's the idea that doesn't matter is crazy. You know what I mean? And
I can't imagine being tasked with being the lead guitar player in any project and just. How much does Kirk not care?
Yeah, exactly. That shows you the indifference that he has.
Right.
That's what it comes to.
To his own creativity.
Yeah. I think all those guys are too wealthy and successful for their own good when it comes to creative endeavors. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of times being too comfortable and being too successful.
Is that what you're saying?
You just don't care. You know what I mean? It's like you kind of, I'm still going to have.
Kirk is in fact.
I'm still going to have
comfortably numb.
He is comfortably numb. Thanks for listening to Rock Guitar Confidential with Ryan and Scott. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. And now back to the show. I still have $25 million in the bank after this, so I don't care. You know what I mean? I think it's, whether these kids think I'm good at solo or not. I think he started that after the Black Album, which is when they had their peak success.
Well, during the Black Album, his solos on that album.
Well, they didn't have the money in the bank until after the Black Album. You know what I mean?
So then I'm just making the point that
that's when he really stopped caring. The last time he cared about making great solos was on Justice for All. That's when he cared.
Yeah, that album is the last time he cared. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the album that he really cared about being taken seriously as a great guitar player.
And if you're a student who wants to learn some Metallica solos, I mean, they're not even, it's such again, so I'm teaching one to a lot of people right now because it's not super fast and shreddy, but there's a cool, C major 7 arpeggio sweep in there. There's some cool melodic lines around B minor. It occurs in multiple positions on the neck. There, he makes phrasing statements.
There's some cool tapping in there and stuff.
Just, so it's really cool. So that's where I think Kirk could make an argument in his defense, but I mean that was like 1988.
Yeah, That's back when he was also had Vai and Lynch and Yngwie and Eddie Van Halen and all these great guitar. But I think what he might be speaking to, and I'm not trying to make excuses for him or read his mind, but the importance of guitar solos now, well, hell, the importance of guitar now is so much less than it ever has been. You know what I mean?
Which is too bad.
Well, of course it's too bad. But back in the '88, it wasn't. The guitar ruled the world back then, and you wouldn't be taken seriously as a metal band if you didn't have a ripping lead guitar player back then. You know, and I think.
Yeah.
That might be what he's speaking to, and that's why all of his greatest stuff came, pre-1990. And it's because, back then you actually had to play guitar. That's another place where I look at Slash and I have to give major props and say he's never not cared. Even if he wasn't playing his greatest or writing his greatest, he's always given it all he had. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever state he's in, he cared about being awesome.
Somewhere in the world right now, Slash is like, as we speak, mm-hmm. as you're listening to this podcast, folks, Slash is somewhere like growing as an artist and getting better at guitar.
And
right
caring.
He cares.
And he's
right?
got, you can arguably as much success as Metallica. You know what I mean?
And let's be clear. I think Kirk Hammett's probably a great dude.
Yep.
I've said it on this podcast before. I'd love to have a beer with him. We talk about Universal monster movies. I'd want to know how his surfing was going or whatever. But like guitar and music, we probably wouldn't talk a whole lot.
He just is just so, like, what's the word, checked out, I want to say. It's not clearly what he cares about anymore. You know what I mean? Metallica's a brand. It's like a lifestyle brand.
Now, here's what bums me out about that. Because, he not only does he have this great opportunity because he's in Metallica, all the resources in the world.
Yeah.
All the free time in the world.
All the ears in the world, too.
And all the ears to listen, right? We got to remember that the advent of the guitar as a focal musical instrument in any genre is still a pretty new thing, right? Like, we didn't have proper guitar amplification until the 1930s.
Yeah, when they wouldn't have really no electric guitar heroes till the 1950s.
Right. Before that, if you were, most likely if you were playing guitar, if it weren't in like a folk or country kind of setting, mm-hmm. then you were one piece of like a 12, 13 piece big band.
Yeah.
And you were relegated to just being a supportive,
basically rhythmic,
Right. You were basically relegated to being a bass player, which I'm not going to wish that on anybody.
Nobody, I know, exactly.
So, because of technology and what amplification became, we have this awesome privilege to express ourselves.
Yeah.
And guitar solos allow us to do that and have a spotlight and a voice. And
the idea that guitar solos aren't important, and we talked about some of this podcast before, they really didn't come around until the mid-90s. That's like when the idea of guitar solos not being important first, because up to that point, of course they're important. It didn't have to be discussed. Of course it is important. Yeah. Everything that rock and roll's ever had, starting from like Elvis and Chuck Berry on, well, guitar solos were an integral part of the sound of rock and roll.
Yep.
You couldn't not have it. You know what I mean? And I think the idea that it doesn't matter is just like you said, it's a massive defense of mediocrity. You know what I mean? And
I think Kirk Hammett is really embodying that right now.
Well, I mean, he's got to catch up with Lars. Lars has been embodying that for 30 years.
Which sucks. I want to live in a version of our world where Metallica is still pushing their own boundaries and coming up with exciting new. I want Metallica to be good.
Dude, that's been gone for a long time.
Again, ever since the Black Album.
You can argue that's one of the reasons Megadeth was so much better for so much longer is because they were just always hungrier. They wanted it more. You know what I mean?
Dave always had the chip.
They never got to that spot where they got. He's been massively successful. You can't argue that Megadeth hasn't been massively successful. But they have not been Metallica successful. So it's almost like,
Metallica is the McDonald's hamburger.
Yeah, and he's like In-N-Out. It's not as big, but arguably way better. You know what I mean? I'm just
that's actually kind of apt.
Yeah, so Metallica made it. Every country, 6 billion served, and he's got In-N-Out, which is really big in the Western United States.
Yeah,
and that's awesome, and he's great. And you can't take anything. The quality is better. There's nothing you can say that takes away from that, but it's just never got as big as the other one. You know what
that's
I mean?
A good point.
And I think that's why he's always been great. He's even on his political views or whatever they are, and I think that his music's gotten a little bit more redundant now because I think he's kind of.
Well, actually, that's why I was saying In-N-Out is actually totally apt.
Yeah, exactly.
He really is the In-N-Out burger. Yeah,
but it's not a trash.
But at least he's not Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, exactly. But I think his music has always been better. That's just my opinion. But I don't. Dave never gave up on his own creativity. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that is very hard when someone has a massive amount of success. It's very easy to just do one or two things. Either just completely phone it in and not care at all, or just be so safe and you just always keep making the same record, kind of go the AC/DC route and just make the same record over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's tough because I know as a fan, when you think about getting a new record from your favorite band, you're really not thinking like, oh, I hope they do something totally different. You're like, well, I love this album. I hope this one's kind of in that same vein. I like that a lot. I want more of that. You know, it's almost like the sequels to movies kind of thing. Like people kind of want the same movie again, like that kind of thing, even though they really don't want that, but they kind of think they want that. And then,
well, there's another part to this too, is the sincerity with which you create your art, right? So, I mean, I think right now Kirk is making an argument that it's not complex, but it's totally sincere. No, it's not. You cannot listen to that solo.
Well, here's what I would say though: we can't be in his head. We don't know what he's thinking or feeling. You know what I mean?
I would. You're true, but I would say the odds are like when he pulls out that that hack pentatonic lick. The Kirk Hammett
that's
lick.
been his whole bag for like 20-something years. I mean,
I just don't feel it.
Yeah.
He went, in that same original thing, he goes on to say like he was really trying to channel Angus Young on the new Metallica album.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see that. He's using the same tools as Angus. You know what I mean?
Again, I'm not knocking Angus, but
his repertoire is a lot broader than Angus's, though. You know what I mean? That's the thing that I know.
He's got more like Angus.
I know he's capable of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Like Angus plays what Angus plays because that's all Angus knows.
Yeah, exactly. And he's the best Angus there is.
Right. He's the only Angus.
Yeah. But that being said, Kirk's got a much broader reservoir of things to draw from that he could be using. And he's not. Yeah, right. Exactly. Which tells me he's just not interested in pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, I don't hear the sincerity in the solo. It really does, because of all we know about what Kirk can do.
Yeah.
It just sounds lazy.
It also could be a producer thing. It could be a Lars thing, where they just don't want, like, this is not, because he even said, like, I read some interview with him on, I think on Blabbermouth or something. He was saying that, like, I could do sweep arpeggios and all this stuff. And he's like, would it fit into our modern music? No, maybe back earlier in our stuff it could be. I'm like, yeah, because you guys are writing more progressive stuff back then. You were actually pushing boundaries back then. And then you of course, more boundary pushing solos would be appropriate for more boundary pushing music. But if you're just sort of like doing like these, kind of standard 4-minute, like, metal riffs that are, almost.
I still think you could find something more.
I know he could too. But I'm trying to see it from his perspective as much as possible. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, well, taking him at his word.
Yeah. Meaning that, yes, the music you're writing is much more mediocre now than it was.
It definitely is.
You know what I mean? It's hard to, that's a big bar. They've written some great stuff. There's a lot of great Metallica. So the idea that at age, 60, they're going to come up with the greatest Metallica, that's just impossible. That's never going to happen. I think, I'm torn on this because I want to believe that I just want to have them keep creating because that's what they do. But I also want them to really care about it and not just sort of, maybe they do. Maybe this is the version of I'm a multimillionaire 62-year-old dude really caring. Maybe this is what that looks like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and so to bring today's chat full circle, got to give credit to Judas Priest.
Yeah.
Right. It's, with the, I know there were suboptimal circumstances surrounding, having to get Richie Faulkner, you know what I mean, with Glenn's condition.
Well, I feel like the Richie Faulkner part was just a big bunch of nonsense that KK just got
right,
feelings
the fallout
and didn't
with KK,
deal with it well, and then they brought him in and he was successful, and they, and KK was hurt by that, and then Glenn getting Parkinson's to the point where he
that's what I mean.
Tour, and then not being asked back in the band. That kind of there's just a whole bunch of.
But
weirdness.
Scott Travis is bringing it on drums. You know that every time the metal god Rob Halford opens his mouth, he believes.
And I'll give a shot to Ian Hill. Ian Hill's a rock solid bass player. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, even the bass player.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the sound. It's part of the sound.
Hell, you know what? The best part of Metallica these days is probably Robert Trujillo.
Well, there's no doubt he's the best musician in the band.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean him and Kirk are probably the two best musicians in that band. Then James is, James, and Lars, he gave up on being a great drummer like 30 years ago.
Right. It's too bad because Lars can play.
He could play at one point.
He had the double kick skills back in the day.
At one point. But that's back when he cared. That's back when it was important to be a great drummer. And for whatever reason,
Lars is more concerned about his new art gallery.
Exactly. He's become this like a mogul. He doesn't really care about the music part as much. I mean, I'm projecting. Maybe he does. Maybe in his mind he does still care.
Any Metallica fans out there, just remember The guys in Metallica wear scarves now.
And beanies.
Scarves and beanies.
Yep. But Priest, though, you're right. The new stuff's really, really great. You know what I mean?
Rips.
And that's actually what, you can really see there's a divide now between like these bands that are sort of phoning it in and bands that are really bringing it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's really inspiring to see bands like the new Winger record, for instance, is freaking awesome. It's great.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And that's a really great record. And then what was the other? The new Dokken album is actually great. Have you heard the new one that John?
Yeah, there's been some interviews also floating around with their current guitar player.
John Levin's a monster, dude. He's a great guitar player. Really, really great.
And I guess before he joined Dokken, he was a lawyer.
Yep, still is a lawyer. He's still a practicing lawyer. Which, if you're with Dokken, it's not like you're touring 365. You got to have he'll be off for these 6 weeks.
That's awesome. I mean, so there's a guy who still cares about his creativity.
You know what? I'd rather hear John Levin playing with Dokken than current George Lynch. Because George Lynch is not George Lynch anymore. You know what I mean?
He's like blues George Lynch now.
Yeah, he's sort of like exploring like Hendrixy land, George Lynch.
He's like George Mashed Potatoes Lynch.
Chicken and grits, mashed potatoes Lynch.
George Lynch. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's still Lynch. And I've heard stuff like definitely with Michael Sweet was really good, and I've heard some of the stuff off his instrumental album that's actually pretty cool. But it's not like he's really pushing the boundaries. It's the same kind of thing, although with him, I feel like it's just the volume of material he's pushing out is just too much to keep the quality level up.
Yeah.
He's just cranking stuff out. And it doesn't sound like Lynch. And I think that what's interesting about him, and we talked about this before, is that he's not really interested in doing what people want him to do. He kind of feels obligated, like, okay, well, my audience wants this, so I gotta, at least pretend like I want to still play this style of music.
But to bring the fire for that,
he doesn't have it. He wants to do like this Hendrixy blues thing. He doesn't want to do that anymore. That's not, he sees that as part of his past, but he knows that's what pays the bills, so.
Now, you mentioned Michael Sweet. I feel like we're due for a new Stryper album sometime soon. That
hopefully
needs to happen specifically because I want to see Oz Fox again.
Yep.
Right. He went through the whole brain tumor thing.
I want to see Oz rip.
Dude, a lot of us thought Oz was going to be gone. Hell, Oz is a guy I'd love to have on this podcast.
He's a very underrated player. I think
very underrated
for whatever
player.
reasons. Well, I mean, we know the reasons, but Stryper's always been taken like not very seriously as a band, and I
feel like they always had to be like that much better of a rock band to even get any ears. And of course, their ballad got on MTV, but that's the ballad. But
that was also the time when everyone's ballad got on MTV. You put on we just talked about Guns, the LA Guns. Like, what's their biggest song? Ballad of Jane.
Right. Yeah,
that was
they're pretty literal there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, literally at that time, that was basically what you had to do. You know what I mean?
And then we're also due for a new King Diamond album, so I'm going to put it out in the universe. I want to see Stryper opening for King Diamond.
I would love to see that. Absolutely.
That would be
That's
great.
a double bill to be awesome.
That would be the best double. They could do the whole light versus the darkness.
Here's the question, though.
I mean, the darkness would win.
Do you really think that King Diamond's going to put the record out anytime in our lifetimes, though? Because I've been hearing about this new record.
I don't know.
It's called The Asylum, right? That's the name of the album.
The Institute.
Oh, The Institute, or whatever it is. And it's been for like 5 years now. And they put a freaking single like 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know, King Diamond had a kid.
Yeah, and he had heart surgery and stuff. And
the heart surgery is, I can see heart surgery not being as detrimental to your career as children. But
well, I mean, I just feel like, isn't the backup singer in his band was his wife, right?
Yeah, Olivia Zeta. Yes.
Yeah. So
it also in my feed, I was happy to see Guitar World, and I also recommend everyone check it out.
Yep, definitely do that, guys, because that's going to hip you to all kinds of players you wouldn't find otherwise. It's going to give you. There's lots of amazing transcriptions in Guitar World.
That's right. So they did a feature on Andy LaRocque.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was so cool, and it was fascinating to me that Andy declares himself as like not really knowing a whole lot of theory.
That's not true. I keep hearing that crap. I heard Marty Friedman say that too. It's like, please.
Yeah, I mean,
like the thing that he's.
Let's qualify what that means. He might not be thinking like crazy, like jazz, like math theory.
Yeah.
But I mean, Andy LaRocque knows what a triad is.
Yes, he knows how to outline chords. He may not be thinking about like implied upper extension triads or something like that, but he's not. He knows what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, he does. And he obviously, and I think part of what he said was, he doesn't really like know what mode this or that is. Well, he knows what harmonic minor is.
Yes,
I'm sure.
He knows what natural minor and Phrygian are as well.
Yeah, totally, man.
Whether he knows that he knows or not, he knows those things.
Yeah. So at guitarworld.com, his quote. So this is Andy LaRocque quoting: "People think I play super fast. It's what you'd expect from a metal guitarist, but I would remind people that I'm very melodic, end quote. And yes, he is.
Yes. And he's also very fast, too. Those two things are not in conflict with each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the rest of this headline, again, that I think this feature, King Diamond's Andy LaRocque on how the Floyd Rose became his calling card and why Death pushed his abilities to the limit. He's talking about the band Death with Chuck Schuldiner. Yep. Individual thought patterns everybody needs to
he did some guest spots on that, right?
Yeah, he did guest solos.
Back when Chuck was raging,
So it was just cool that they're doing a feature on him. And this is from Guitar World.
Yep.
This isn't like Ultimate Guitar. This isn't like a more obscure site. This is from like the premier guitar publication.
Yep.
In the world. Well, it's Guitar World.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not Guitar County.
Guitar Sacramento County.
Yeah, exactly. So, that just in and of itself makes me think that, they say the Institute should be 2024.
God, I hope so.
I hope so too, because that'll also mean more touring.
Yeah. Well, also just more output. It'd be nice to have more King Diamond. You know what I mean? It's
definitely
good to have that. I think that's something that, because honestly, a lot of these bands, Priest is in the same bucket. You can throw Traci Guns in that same bucket. They're not like endless runway ahead of us that we're going to keep having. They're not like 27 and they're like 4 albums in their career.
Kiss just called it quits.
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably
for the 15th time, but
a few years later than they probably should have. They probably should have called it quits like 10 years ago.
I want to get at least one more King Diamond show.
Yeah. Well,
in my life.
I like to get another album, because the one thing that's cool about an album is that you have that forever. You know what I mean? You can sit there and listen to it 15, 20, 30 years from now. You can still have it. You know what I mean?
If it's King Diamond, it's concept album, so it's also like a book.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what I'm saying, though? You have that forever. Like a concert's like an experience that comes and goes really quick. It just washes over you. Like an album you have forever.
Dude, there is nothing more cool than screaming grandma with like 20,000 people at the same time. It's so great.
That's kind of a Comic-Con experience too, in a way. Like you have like that.
Totally.
Other people are passionate about the same thing you're passionate about.
Totally, dude. Or like, Anime Expo or... Yeah, because you're with the same, you're with your peeps.
Yeah, people who can see the same thing. Like, I know.
That's how I used to feel about the NAMM show, and I was just explaining this to a buddy of mine who lives in Los Angeles about before the NAMM show was open to the general public.
It's not open to the general public, though.
It is.
No, not really.
Okay, you don't have to like launch like a mission to get a pass. No. There's the guest pass.
If you work for a music retail establishment, you can get in.
But if you don't, you can still get in. If you're just a fanboy, you can easily get into NAMM.
I don't know about easily, but okay. I mean, it's possible to be done, yes.
Yes.
But NAMM was so much cooler back in the day, too, because like it wasn't like just, okay, Steve Vai is going to do a signing at Ibanez Guitars at noon, from noon to 12:50 or something, you know what I mean? And then this other person's going to sign here. That's basically what what's happening now. And then the rest of it's just a bunch of businessmen making deals with each other. That's all.
Well, but it's not even the businessmen making deals with each other anymore, because all of that happens remotely.
That's true. Which is why the NAMM show is going to go away. I mean, because there's no point to bring people there other than the social component, which is, okay, why would you pay that much money for a floor space to do that?
Right. It doesn't make sense for the manufacturers.
Well, I think the pandemic made that very clear. It's like, oh, we actually don't have to do this at all. Why would we do this?
In other industries, Trey, like in the, like the video game industry, the E3, that was a big convention. Like, it's closing down too.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have any purpose. But I will say, I miss being around tens of thousands of people, like all in the same place for the same event, knowing that like the vast majority are serious musicians.
Yeah.
Right. That was a really cool experience. I'm glad I got to have it.
Really fortunate to have been to the last few real NAMM shows.
That's right.
I mean, I've been to freaking every NAMM show since like 2007, but it's one of those things that, and I was very grateful to have gone in the late 90s as a student at MI.
Sure.
To experience it, because that's back when it was really the NAMM show. That's back when it really was what it was. You know what I mean? It was so much cooler than what it ended up becoming. Even the last like 10 years of the NAMM show. I mean, it's cool to go see the new stuff, but after you've been like 15 of them, you realize it's like all the same. It's the same thing every year. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like there's not anything cool going on with the clinics. I mean, the coolest thing I think I saw the last one time I went, it was why I performed at that last one, but I remember seeing Tony Levin doing a clinic for Music Man. That was kind of cool.
That's cool.
But there was way more of that going on back. Like every time you'd walk around, like every corner, there'd be like, oh, that's Terry Bozzio, and they're doing the drum clinic. This is, Steve Morris in this little booth at Music Man doing a guitar clinic. You know what I mean? And you just could walk in there and check it. I remember seeing Tony McAlpine doing a concert.
How cool.
Like all that. You kind of go there and like, this is rad. Everybody's freaking, they're just right there. It was about the music, and then
and then you go back to your hotel, and then like in the lobby, there's like Eric Sardinas, like ripping it up, you know, just a whole, it was just, it wasn't just at the convention. It was also all the shows that happened afterwards and like, you know, the lobby of the hotel you were staying in, there was like a ton of, you know, badass people playing music in the hotel. Like it just felt like it took over the whole city. And you were just in a sea of musical awesomeness.
Yeah, and
it was vibrant.
I think that because of the limitations of the music retail industry now, that's going to definitely go away. It's going to be because there was no internet before that. Back in like the early '90s, that's the only way you could show people and talk to people. You know, is that. Yep. But now because of the internet, you don't need that. You can put everything online. All the information's there. They know what you have, what you don't have. You know, it just
further commodification.
It doesn't make sense.
Yep.
You know what I mean? To do that. So I think.
And don't get me wrong, like, you know, having worked conventions for manufacturers and other industries, I mean, it's hard work.
Yeah.
No doubt. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work hard, play hard situation for most of those dudes. So
yeah, right, totally.
Yeah, especially if you're not from Southern California. If you're not from there, then you're like, oh, dude, I'm in LA for the week. You know what I mean? That's kind of cool. You know, and if you're from there, it's like, well, yeah, just go to the thing and come back. You know, but I don't know, it's weird. I think, long story short, though, that it's sad to see guys like Kirk Hammett just kind of not give a shit anymore.
Yeah, it sucks when good things like NAMM and young Kirk Hammett get diluted and start to suck.
What you're watching or listening to people is the two people like coming to grips with middle age. It's like going,
I guess,
things were so much cooler when we were kids. You know what I mean? And it's
you know, that's why I try to stick to, you know, certain objective phenomenon, like people don't get together face to face anymore. Stuff like NAMM. You know? Well, you know, that's why I think anime is great, because the anime conventions are still vibrant and people are still fired up about those.
The fan culture is still going strong, and that's not going to change. But the stuff like the trade shows is going to start slowly dwindling because there's no reason for it. You know. That's probably a good place to end up our podcast.
So today. Hey, big thanks to Traci Guns for defending art and creativity, defending the honor of the guitar solo, and hopefully all of you out there listening are also defending the honor of the guitar solo
and venerating the electric guitar as nature intended.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The greatest musical instrument ever invented. That's a scientific fact.
It's true. So guys, thank you so much for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott. Please make sure to rate, subscribe, and review this album.
Well, yes, this album. Listen to our album as well.
Yeah, listen to our album, but rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. And please check out our X Ages debut album, which is available any place you get digital music. And then please make sure to subscribe to this podcast. If you want more information about us, our band, or anything we do podcast related or otherwise, please check out our website at xagesband.com.
That's www.exagesband.com.
Oh my God, I was waiting for it. And then also we have links to our social media, so please make sure to follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks so much for listening.
Peace.